The U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is making another trip to the Middle East amid fears of escalating tensions in the region, stemming from a possible spillover of the war in Gaza. He's set to visit Israel to continue, quote, diplomatic consultations on the conflict. Secretary Blinken's visit to the Middle East comes after deadly explosions rocked Iran's south. Tehran has vowed revenge, blaming Israel and the United States for the twin bomb blasts. The incident has been described as a terrorist attack and the bloodiest since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Washington has denied any involvement and no one has claimed responsibility. The death toll has been revised down to 84 from 95, with more than 200 others also injured. Our tensions in the region also running high following the killing of a top Hamas official in a drone strike in Lebanon earlier this week. But both Israel and Hezbollah have signaled no desire for the conflict to spread beyond Gaza, despite continued strikes along the Lebanese border. Hamas and Israeli forces continue to keep up the fight as the war hits its 11th week. Rockets fired from the Gaza Strip towards southern Israel were intercepted. No immediate damage or injuries were reported. Israeli forces have also ramped up aerial and ground operations across Gaza. 14 Palestinians were reported to have been killed in Israeli strikes in El Mawasi, near the southern city of Khan Yunis. The enclave's health ministry says more than 22,300 people have been killed by Israeli strikes since the 7th of October. For more, Trent Murray joins us live from Tel Aviv. Trent, what else do we know about Secretary Blinken's trip to the Middle East? What is Washington hoping to achieve from this fourth trip in less than 2 months?
Well, this will be the fifth visit for Secretary Blinken to Israel since the October 7th attack. And we know that he's coming at a time when it really feels like tensions are ratcheting up even further rather than subsiding. We are tracking several key areas, really, that we expect the discussions to be dominated around. The first is the situation in Gaza. We know the Americans have been signalling both publicly and privately their desire for Israel to provide some answers on when they're going to move away from the sort of high-intensity warfare that we've been seeing for the past 3 months to more targeted operations. And that comes as the UN continues to raise concern about the escalating humanitarian crisis there. We expect humanitarian aid, therefore, will be discussed. As the UN says, around 40% of the Strip is now at risk of famine, as well as this idea of potentially letting more aid in through the sea, through a Cypriot-backed initiative via a sea ferrying, essentially, of aid from the port of Larnaca. I think we should also keep an eye out on the situation regarding hostages. We know there is still around 129 hostages being kept by Hamas within the Gaza Strip. There are American citizens amongst them, and there is pressure building both in the US and also here in Israel for more to be done to try and secure their release. And then I think the other area that we just need to watch out for is that ongoing situation on the Red Sea. We know that it's been about 2 weeks now since America moved its naval assets into the region as part of what it called Operation Prosperity Guardian, even an aircraft carrier strike group. But despite that huge show of force by the Americans and some of its allies to try and secure those shipping lanes, those Yemen-based Houthis have really shown no desire to back off on their attacks. We've seen more missile and rocket attacks, even an attempted hijacking or two on civilian vessels. So we know that that situation remains a real concern for people in this region. Many of the world's biggest shipping companies are still saying that they're going to avoid sailing through there given the instability.
Trent, growing condemnation in response to Israeli ministers calling to push Palestinians out of Gaza, some calling this plan irresponsible. Will these sentiments have any effect on what Israel plans to do in Gaza?
Yeah, this has been a really controversial issue, particularly over recent days, as some of Benjamin Netanyahu's senior ministers have come out now publicly floating this idea of essentially enacting an immigration program for people living within Gaza to send them to third countries. We've had the finance minister, the interior security minister, and others suggesting that this may be the path forward, but it has garnered a huge reaction from the US, who has called it inflammatory and irresponsible. Germany has come out and said that any idea that Palestinians living within Gaza will be pushed to live elsewhere is irresponsible as well and is just not workable. And so we're starting to see some backtracking now from the Israelis on that type of language. But I think it shows that there is more thinking now going into what happens the day after the war, as many in this region call it. There's long been a fear for the Palestinians that this conflict could be a catalyst for them being forced to leave their territory where they live. But certainly many of even Israel's closest allies are saying that that is just a non-starter of an idea and are telling Israel to back off on that suggestion.
Thanks for that. Trent Murray reporting live from Tel Aviv.